Senator Ludlam.
I don't propose to detain the chamber for long on these matters. Notice was certainly provided.
Senator Ludlam,
yes.
you either need to move a motion now
I will move a motion to that effect, Mr Deputy President.
To take note of the minister's response.
To take note of the minister's response,
Thank
sketchy
you,
though it
Senator
might have been. And I recognise that Senator Colbeck's here in a representing capacity. I think it's a shame that the department didn't see fit to provide you with a brief, Senator Colbeck, through you, Mr Chair. The questions that I've put on notice relate to the documentation provided to the federal government, or not provided as the case may be, by the Western Australian government on the Perth Freight Link. I think it's appropriate that this issue is raised in the first sitting week of Parliament for 2016, because this is going to be a very big issue. It could be put to bed very rapidly, either at a state level or a Commonwealth level, or it is going to explode into a federal and then a state election issue in Western Australia. The fact of the matter is, I have never seen greater incompetence in an infrastructure funding decision at a state level than that has attended the Perth Freight Link, the proposed Perth Freight Link in Western Australia. In case senators from outside Western Australia aren't aware of the place that I'm talking about, it is a proposal for 4, or by some accounts 6 lanes of tarmac through the Belia Regional Park and the Belia wetlands that would flatten an area of wetlands that is actually a very important cultural place for the Aboriginal people of the region and has been for tens of thousands of years. And it then proposes to smash through 100 hectares, just under 100 hectares of urban bushland, of almost pristine and intact Banksia woodland. This is a freeway project that was put in the planning scheme in 1955 in Western Australia. And those lines that were marked on a map in the mid-1950s in the Stevenson-Hepburn plan are still being used as an excuse in the early 21st century for why we should be hammering this urban bushland and wetland. It is a proposal that has put neighbourhood amenity at risk in Bibra Lake, in North Lake, in Palmyra, and it is a road to nowhere. I have never seen greater incompetence in a proposal for a publicly funded infrastructure project than that has been pursued by Premier Barnett and the Transport Minister Dean Nowder, who quite frankly should have been sacked months ago over this debacle and the stress that it has put people through. The EPA approval was knocked over late last year in the Western Australian Supreme Court, and that is a rare judgment, but a strident judgment in condemnation of the EPA's conduct over this issue. Now, the Commonwealth, as I said, has a remedy very easily at hand. The Commonwealth can tell Premier Barnett, and it could do that this afternoon with a phone call by Senator Matthias Cormann, that there will not be a dollar of Commonwealth taxpayers' money going to this project. It has been hammered in the state Supreme Court. It is under attack in the federal court. It is politically massively unpopular. There's an extraordinarily powerful mobilisation of community groups, environmental campaigners, Aboriginal elders and families. This project will not be going ahead. And if the federal government wants to save itself and the hapless Premier Barnett a world of misery through this forthcoming election campaign, they simply need to turn off the funding tap. The questions, I'll just go very briefly. There's 2 pages worth of questions. In fact, there's more than that, 3 pages worth of questions. I'm not going to go through them in any kind of detail, and I hope that Senator Colbeck is able to update the chamber either later today or tomorrow. The cost-benefit analysis that was submitted by the Western Australian government in a rather feeble attempt to justify the project. They had 3 different numbers that emerged from that cost-benefit analysis, and nobody outside the bureaucrats who crafted it or the consultants that they had put it together has ever seen the workings or the assumptions that they put into these imaginary numbers. And so we are seeking some information to be put into the public domain as to how the Barnett government came up with some of these imaginary numbers. Can you imagine a project that proposes a 4-fold increase in truck traffic onto local roads out the back of Fremantle, increased carcinogenic air pollution and reduced neighbourhood amenity, the impact on livability, the loss of 100 hectares of irreplaceable Banksia woodland, the hammering of the Belia wetlands, the loss of recreation and amenity? Somehow these costs end up erased from the balance sheet, and the benefits end up being overinflated. Now, one of the ways in which we believe they did it is the department gives benefits a weighting of 80% but costs a weighting of 20%. So you have some imaginary numbers for benefits. They modelled, apparently the business case is meant to say that $70 million in carbon savings. This is a government populated by people who can barely bring themselves to acknowledge that global warming is even real, and yet they model $70 million in carbon savings by smashing a 4-lane freeway through wetlands and bushland. And somehow these benefits end up on the benefit side of the balance sheet or of the equation for a project such as this. I want to get an understanding, and the public, the people of metropolitan Perth and WA more broadly, want to get an idea of how the government, or how the department modelled the costs for a project that barely even exists, for a project where the minister can't decide from one minute to another whether he wants a freeway once this atrocity hits the Stock Road interchange, or whether he wants a tunnel, how it's proposed to get into Fremantle, when the Fremantle port might actually be at capacity, and then leading to the need for overflow container capacity in Cockburn Sound. How do you model the costs for the cost side of the cost-benefit equation when you don't even know what your project is, and yet the department comes forward with these very confident-sounding gestures that the costs will be this, the benefits will be that, and therefore the project is worth building? It is based on imaginary numbers on a project that won't get built. And that is why we've put these questions, these very serious questions, to the Commonwealth Minister, because this isn't just a problem for Western Australian taxpayers. This is $2 billion that can't then be spent helping the people of the Hunter Valley adapt to climate change, or being put into schools, or being put into further work on high-speed rail. The entire tax-paying public of Australia stand to lose billions of dollars through this debacle if Premier Barnett gets his way. Senator Cormann, Minister Truss, Prime Minister Turnbull, who professes, and I see it on the internet a fair bit, to be a fan of public transport, should be looking at genuine public transport options for Western Australia, for freight rail solutions, and for a future-proof strategy of taking the container pressure off Fremantle Port. The solutions are very well at hand. What we don't have are answers. What we don't have are transparency. And this is going to be a very, very significant problem for the Liberal National Party if they are seriously proposing to torch more than $2 billion on this road to nowhere in the middle of an election year. So I hope Senator Colbeck, on behalf of the responsible minister, is forthcoming with some answers, because if he is not, this will not be the last time that this is raised in this place.